Welcome to First Chapter Friday. Today I'm going to be sharing to you the beginning of the Mysterious Benedict Society by Trenton Lee Stewart. And this is the first book in a series. I'm going to consider this one a classic. It's been out for a while now, and I know that this series is one of my favorites. So I hope that you enjoy it as well. Chapter 1, Pencils, Erasers, and Disqualifications. In a city called Stonetown, near a port called Stonetown Harbor, a boy named Rainey Muldoon was preparing to take an important test. It was the second test of the day. The first had been in an office across town. After that one, he was told to come here, to the Monk Building on 3rd Street, and to bring nothing but a single pencil and a single rubber eraser, and to arrive no later than 1 o'clock. If he happened to be late or bring 2 pencils or forget his eraser or in any other way deviate from the instructions, he would not be allowed to take the test, and that would be that. Rainey, who very much wanted to take it, was careful to follow the instructions. Curiously enough, these were the only ones given. He was not told how to get to the Monk Building, for example, and had found it necessary to ask directions to the nearest bus stop, acquire a schedule from a dishonest bus driver who tried to trick him into paying for it, and walk several blocks to catch the 3rd Street bus. Not that any of this was difficult for Rainey Muldoon. Although he was only 11 years old, he was quite used to figuring things out for himself. From somewhere across the city, a church bell struck the half hour. 12:30. He still had a while to wait. When he'd checked the doors of the Monk Building at noon, they were locked. So Rainey had bought a sandwich at a deli stand and sat down on a park bench to eat. A tall building in Stonetown's busiest district must surely have many offices inside, he thought. Locked doors at noon seemed a little peculiar. But then, what hadn't been peculiar about this whole affair? To begin with, there was the advertisement. A few days before, Rainey had been reading the newspaper over breakfast at Stonetown Orphanage, sharing sections with his tutor, Miss Perrimel. As Rainey had already completed all the textbooks on his own, even those for high school students, the orphanage director had assigned him a special tutor while the other children went to class. Miss Perrimel didn't quite know what to do with Rainey either, but she was intelligent and kind, and in their time together they had grown fond of sharing the morning newspaper over breakfast and tea. The newspaper that morning had been filled with the usual headlines, several of them devoted to what was commonly called the emergency. Things had gotten desperately out of control, the headlines reported. The school system, the budget, the pollution, the crime, the weather, why, everything, in fact, was a complete mess. And citizens everywhere were clamoring for a major, dramatic improvement in the government. Things must change now, was the slogan plastered on billboards all over the city. It was a very old slogan. And although Rainey rarely watched television, he knew the emergency was the main subject of the news programs every day, as it had been for years. Naturally, when Rainey and Miss Perrimel first met, they had discussed the emergency at great length, finding themselves quite in agreement about politics. However, they soon found such conversations boring and decided to drop the subject. In general, then, they talked about the other news stories, those that varied day to day, and afterward they amused themselves by reading the advertisements. Such was the case on that particular morning, when Rainey's life had so suddenly taken a turn. "Do you care for more honey with your tea?" Miss Perrimel had asked, speaking into Mill, a language she was teaching him. But before Rainey could answer that, of course he wanted more honey, the advertisement caught Miss Perrimel's eye, and she exclaimed, "Rainey, look at this! Would you be interested?" Miss Perrimel sat across the table from him, but Rainey, who had no trouble reading upside down, quickly scanned the advertisement's bold printed words. "Are you a gifted child looking for special opportunities?" How odd, he thought. The question was addressed directly to children, not their parents. Rainey had never known his parents, who died when he was an infant, and it pleased him to read a notice that seemed to take that possibility into account. But still, how odd. How many children read the newspaper after all? Rainey did, but he had always been alone in this, had always been considered an oddball. If not for Miss Paramall, he might even have given it up by now to avoid some of the teasing. I suppose I might be interested, he said to Miss Paramall, if you think I would qualify. Miss Paramall gave him a wry look. Don't you play games with me, Rainey Muldoon. If you aren't the most talented child I've ever known, then I've never known a child at all. If you want to hear more about this test and what exactly these special opportunities are, then check out the Mysterious Benedict Society. There are a lot of interesting characters in this story, a lot of mysteries, and a lot of puzzles to help solve. This is published by Little Brown and Company and available here at the library as well as an audiobook and ebook downloadable. Have a great week.